Hi there. Let's talk about Plotinus and emanation. I'm Eric Steinhardt. You can learn more about me at my website, www.ericsteinhardt.com. Plotinus starts with the one. Boom! The one explodes in a blazing glory of energy and power. And eventually we get the universe, which is really complicated. How did that happen? How do we go from this to this? Plotinus says emanation. Well, that doesn't seem to really help very much. What is emanation? And of course, Plotinus uses metaphors of light, the sun, snow giving off cold, fires giving off heat. These are all metaphors, very interesting, but how does it work? Let's start with Plato, go back to Plato and Platonic construction. In the Timaeus, Plato talks about the construction of physical things, and he starts with numbers, real numbers, geometrical quantities, which are just real numbers. He applies the Pythagorean theorem, and we can fit numbers together into a pattern, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We get Pythagorean triples, the triple 1, 1, and the square root of 2, and that gives us right triangles, a right triangle with side of length 1, side of length 1, and a hypotenuse of length square root of the 2. So given numbers and the capacity to form triples, that is structures of numbers, we get right triangles. Once we have right triangles, we can make particles, which are analogous to quarks in Plato's construction. We can make more complex particles. Those would be analogous to things like protons and neutrons by putting the right triangles together. And eventually we get atoms, which for Plato were only four kinds: fire, air, water, and earth. Right, the Platonic solids. So this is going from arithmetic to geometry, going from numbers to shapes that is going to be solids in three-dimensional space, and of course a fourth dimension of time. This is Platonic construction. We start with, there's the existential quantifier, being itself, the one at the bottom, which produces numbers, which produce geometrical structures, which produce atoms, which produce complex physical structures. That's how Plato did it in the Timaeus. And how are we going to do it, since we're not 2,500 years ago? We're going to start from being itself, which emanates logical axioms, which emanate mathematical axioms and mathematical structures, which emanate cosmic computers, which emanate physical structures. Where do we start? Let's start with the tree of strings. These are binary strings, sequences of zeros and ones, binary digits or bits. Those are produced from being itself. Now, we could start with the set theoretic hierarchy, the iterative hierarchy of pure sets, but the tree of strings will appear as a structure within that iterative hierarchy. So we'll just start with strings, binary strings. Well, this is digital Platonism. There's a binary string, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, so forth. And the binary string, according to this kind of constructionism, calls into being something like a program. There's a program for a player piano. So the binary string calls into being a program. It's a description number for a kind of complex program. And the program calls into being the computer that will run it. Here, the player piano roll, right, the piece of paper with the punched holes in it, calls into being the player piano which runs it. And of course, the player piano runs that program and produces some music. That music would be analogous to the universe. So, how can we work this out in a little more detail? We're not talking about player pianos, but we've got an idea here from computing and programming. We start with some binary digits, some binary string. That binary string serves as the description number for the architecture of a computing machine, and that architecture calls into being a concrete computer, which implements it. And the concrete computer, by running that program, generates something like a video game world. There's Minecraft, and so we have a universe. Let's go back to that. We start with a binary string. It produces the architecture of a computer. It emanates that architecture, the abstract description of a computing machine. The abstract description emanates the concrete computer, which follows that description, and the computer emanates the universe, right? The program computes a universe into being. This is Turing emanation, to be a little bit more precise about it. The binary string serves as the description number for a Turing machine. There's just a little binary number on the left side and a little Turing machine on the right side. So the binary number, the bit string, emanates a description, an axiomatic description of a Turing machine. It serves as a description number, right? Because with Turing machines, we don't have to worry about the wood and metal of a player piano, right? We're going directly from a binary string to a described object, right? An object which serves as a model of that string, which the string can call into being. And that Turing machine, just the initial, which is just simply the initial setup of the Turing machine, the axiomatically described Turing machine, right, that generates space and time. Right, the Turing machine tape is like a one-dimensional space, the 1 and 0. You can picture as either the presence or absence of energy. You can picture the tape head as being a causal operator, and the tape head now moves and changes the tape in accordance with the program that it encodes, and that sequence of transformations of the tape unfolds as time. So right away from an axiomatic specification of a Turing machine, we get a simple spatiotemporal structure, a primitive proto-physical structure. And that proto-physical structure further emanates a universe. A complex physical universe supervenes on that primitive proto-physical structure. There I have it as the game of life, right? A glider in a simple game of life. We can specify this a little bit more as axioms of manifestation or emanation. I like manifestation because it's a little bit more of a contemporary term. And there's going to be four manifestation axioms. The first one says for every string in our binary tree of strings, if it's a sentence in the Platonic machine language, then there exists a corresponding Turing machine description number, which will be actually a little bit more compressed and complicated than just a binary string. The second manifestation axiom says for every Turing machine description number, there exists a corresponding axiomatic specification of a Turing machine. The third axiom says for every axiomatically specified Turing machine, there exists the entire history of that machine. That's a kind of proto-physical universe. And the fourth axiom says for every Turing machine history, there exists its most complex physical interpretation. And that complex physical interpretation supervenes on the Turing machine history. All of these things are going to be set theoretic structures. These axioms simply describe how to map one set theoretic structure, which is a binary string, right, a sequence of digits, onto another set theoretic structure, which is an entire physical universe, right? And physicality supervenes on the mathematical structure. Physical structure supervenes on mathematical structure. There's no dualism here. This Platonism rejects a dualism of the abstract and the concrete. The concrete supervenes on the abstract. It's not some distinctive kind of stuff. And we'll talk about that later. So I'm Eric Steinhardt. You can learn more about me at my website, www.ericsteinhardt.com. Thank you.